Intro. Hello everyone, and welcome to another day in the arena. This is Poor Mana's Magic, and today we're going to be taking a look at the standard metagame to see how the Boros Aggro uncommon and common deck that we put together yesterday can compare. So looking at the top 5 standard meta decks, we have Mono Red Aggro with a whopping 20.6% share of the meta, followed by Esper Legends with an almost equally whopping 18.2%. Following in those footsteps, we have Azorius Control, another very similar Esper midrange deck, and Rakdos Midrange. So how does our deck compare here? Well, as you can kind of see, we have 3 midrange decks. Within that midrange, we have one that's maybe a little bit more controlling, and then one that's a little bit more aggressive. On either end of that, we have control, and we have one aggro deck. And this tells me that despite the large share of the meta that Mono Red has, this is actually a pretty well balanced meta. Now we might see some shifts as the post-ban realm begins to settle even more, but given that Boros Aggro is pretty similar to Mono Red Aggro and that has a big lion's share, I'm pretty pleased with how we read things yesterday. But so how would we compare to each of these decks given that in the tier 1, in gold 1, which is the ladder position we're in, we need a 50% win rate. So for every win that we get in gold, we're going to gain 2 pips. For every loss, we'll lose 1, which means we just have to win 1, lose 1 in order to get up to platinum. So let's compare and see how we might theoretically do. So for Mono Red Aggro, this list is going to run a lot of 2 damage based spells. Invasion of Tarkir with Bloodthirsty Adversary. There's going to be some recursion. They'll be able to get back some of those shocks and keep that gas going. But for the most part, they're going to rely on somebody not being able to go as fast as they are. They're going to rely on your opponent not having any life gain and not being able to keep up. With Esper Legends, this deck really wants to establish a little bit of board presence, put Rona on the board so that they can start gaining some card advantage, and then hold out until their Shieldred can really take over. That means that our Boros deck might have a chance to get in a little bit quicker. We can usually start pushing lethal damage by turn 5 or 6. So if we can escape a Shieldred on the board by turn 4, we might have a pretty good chance in this matchup. With Azorius Control, any aggro deck is going to have a pretty good shot here. You just have to get in quick, survive 1, maybe 2 board wipes, and keep pushing damage through. I have a feeling we would win about 70% of these games. For Esper Midrange, it's kind of the same as Esper Legends, although maybe Esper Midrange runs a little bit more removal. That might be a little bit tougher. I would say we're probably going to come in a little under 45% win rate on that front. And then with Rakdos Midrange, for me, this is probably our worst matchup aside from Mono Red. Rakdos Midrange is going to have a lot of cheap and early removal. They're going to be able to flood the board to prevent some of our on-the-ground attackers from getting through. And we're not going to be able to 2-for-1 them the way that they will 2-for-1 us. So what does this mean? I have a feeling we would get about 50% out of Mono Red Aggro. We might win about 50% of the Esper Legends, a little bit over 50% for the Azorius, under 50% here, and under 50% here. So that tells me we need to be just a little bit better in either the ones that we have a pretty good matchup with, or focus on tweaking our deck a little bit towards what makes us weak here. And what makes us weak to the mid-range Rakdos and Esper decks is really their ability to stall us on turn 3 with better creatures and then start taking over the game with card draw. This tells me that we need some 2-for-1s in our deck. So going over to the deck as it was yesterday, we can see that we have several 1-mana plays, some really nice creatures with keywords like prowess and flying. Evasion is always good in an aggro deck, especially in the mirror match with the other Mono Red decks. Our turn 2 is going to be either a little bit of removal or some tricks. We have Lightning Strikes to go face or hit a creature. We have Antagonize and Blazing Crescendo for a little bit of card advantage and a very big surprise. And then we kind of have our top end, Sunrise Cavalier and Stoke the Flames. The problem with this deck as it stands, and which gives us such a poor matchup, is that at the common and uncommon level, you're mostly going to squeak out 1-for-1 trades. one of your cards is going to answer one of your opponent's cards. As we get into that mid-range value kind of matchup, they're going to be able to 2-for-1 us a little bit more. And especially in that Rakdos matchup, when they have creatures who are 2-powered, 3-powered, they're going to be able to clog us up, slow us down, and take over. So what we want to do is look for some sort of card that can give us a small advantage. And as I was looking through what we had available to us, I came across Seismic Wave. Now, this is a card that probably doesn't see any play. However, I think it could be a little bit sneaky. In a mono red matchup, this can hit all of their creatures. We have a card now that can hit their Phoenix Chicks, their Swiftspears, their flipped Kumanos. If they have maybe 2 Phoenix Chicks and a flipped Kumano that's holding ours down, we can play a Seismic Wave, deal 2 damage to Kumano, and take out both of their Phoenix Chicks. If they manage to have something a little bit bigger at 3 toughness, maybe a Graveyard Trespasser in a black deck, we can deal 2 damage to that and an additional damage to all of their creatures, take that out, and proceed. So I'm interested to see how this works, and I think we're going to go ahead and add 3 as a potential removal. Now, because we have so many creatures, I think we'll go ahead and drop a couple of the Lookouts and maybe one of the Play with Fires. We'll keep a little bit more removal than we went in with yesterday, and we'll see how this goes. So let's go ahead, jump into the gameplay. Okay, we have our first opponent, Taxic. It's a very large mouth they have. We're on the play. We have a turn 1 Phoenix Chick, a little bit of turn 2 removal, which is really good, however, no white mana. And then we have a Stoke the Flames and Play with Fire to follow up. I think this is a perfectly fine deck. Oh, and look at that. We had such a good hand that our opponent decided it wasn't even worth it. Let's take our 2 pips and move to the next one. Okay, we have opponent number 2 in Meloki, something like that. Interesting hand. We have our Phoenix Chick, our Play with Fire, and our Seismic Wave. However, we continue to not pick up white mana for our removal and for Swooping Lookout. Now, I think because we have a Scry ability here, and because we have at least 2 lands, we might give this a chance because we are on the play. If we were on the draw, I might want to secure a white mana for some of our other removal, but we'll give this a go. I always appreciate an opponent that has Tristani. Hello. We'll start with Phoenix Chick, attack face, and see what we're going to be up against. So it comes down as a Selesnya Overgrown Farmland. Now, the last time we played this color on turn 1, we were looking at a Toxic deck, and we matched up very, very well there. So again, another matchup for Seismic Wave. We'll have to see if that can do the damage we think it can. So we'll go ahead and scry here with a at face Play with Fire. Try to find our land, which we did, and we'll attack in. So this is probably the best case scenario for us, given we're maybe facing a Toxic deck. But we'll have to see what comes down. Ooh, Selesnya Enchantments instead. This makes more sense. So, we have the ability to Fateful Absence the Kami before it attacks, but it might also be helpful to wait until next turn. However, if they get to cast an enchantment, and an enchantment is put into the graveyard, although it has to be from the battlefield, so we could wait until next turn to try to keep their board clear. We could kill it now. I think we want to hold on to Seismic Wave, wait for some of their bigger things to come down. And I think for this, we might just attack with Phoenix Chick and say go. Now, Seismic Wave is an instant spell, so that could be good for us. But we'll have to see what comes down next. Opponent plays a Weaver of Harmony. So I think we go ahead and let this resolve. We'll see if they want to attack in, and they do not. So in this case, I think we Fateful Absence the Kami. Obviously, we don't want Weaver coming down because it's going to be able to double up their next Enchantments enter the battlefield ability. Our opponent is at 13. They have the ability to draw. I think what we would like to do here is attack with the Swiftspear and hold up Seismic Wave just to see what happens. If they try to block, which I don't think they will, wow. We can take that out by Blazing Crescendoing our Phoenix Chick, pumping up our Swiftspear, and then playing out our Swooping Lookout. So this gives us, through the air, 1, 2, 6 damage, which looks pretty good. So they're going to need to get some removal in here, stat. However, if they want to play multiple creatures, we have a couple different ways to deal with those. Seismic Wave, again, can deal 2 damage to any target, stop 1, and then 1 damage to each of their creatures again, which means we can do 3 damage to one of their creatures. So even if they played a Kami and a 1 mana enchantment, an aura, we might be able to still get past that. But because we also have evasion, they're kind of feeling the pressure here. They need to do something to remove our flyers. It will be an Audacity, so it looks like we're going to get put on the clock here. Ooh. 1, 2, 3. So we can take out the Kami right now. They will draw an additional card, but then next turn, so long as we have 1 creature, we should be able to get through that, deal 4 damage, and find our way there. Now, is that better than antagonizing this turn and stoking the flame next turn? The issue is if they have a way to give Kami lifelink. Now, I haven't seen that in too many of the enchantment decks. I think the best foot forward here might be antagonizing. Buff up to 3. But I also think maybe Seismic Wave is safer. Let's go ahead and do that. Take out their Kami, pump up our own creature, and then we will have a slightly better attack next turn. We'll have 2 damage through the air, plus the Stoke the Flames. So we'll see if that gets us where we want to go, but I think keeping their board clear is best right now. Ooh, they have a tap land, which probably means they can only play one or 2 creatures here. Looks like our opponent's going to think through what they want to do. Generous Visitor comes out. They don't have, and this is important, if they're holding an ossification, they do not currently have a basic land to use that. So they might have the removal that their deck offers them, but not a way to play it. And this can be the downside of playing too many rares. Let that be a lesson to you, opponent. Sometimes it's better to go cheap. So this is going to be lethal. We'll go ahead and attack with our flyers. We'll keep up Monastery Swiftspear for our Convoke cost, even though we didn't need to because of the Vigilance. And then we'll go face, and we will say, GG's. Good game, Meliki. Always nice to see another Tristani. Okay. Okay. We have an opponent whose name I cannot read, but nonetheless. So we have a Phoenix Chick, a good turn 1. We have both kinds of mana. We have a couple pump spells if we get to 3 mana, a Seismic Wave, and we have our top end removal. The only thing we're really missing here is 1 more creature to really make this pop. But because we're on the play, and we're the aggro deck, let's just go face. Played turn 1 Mountain into Phoenix Chick, turn it sideways, the only way we know how. It looks like opponent is playing blue-white. So this could be the Azorius control that we saw is a big chunk of the meta. This could also be the Soldiers deck. Now either way, Soldiers don't have many flyers until turn 3. When they also get Brutal Cathar. Brutal Cathar is a 2 cost or a 2 toughness spell though, so Seismic Wave is going to be good, and we just got our 3rd land. So we're going to go ahead and antagonize and put them on a clock. Now, because we don't have another creature in hand, that does make me a little bit nervous. So they have some sort of interaction, but my bet is they are playing soldiers. So we'll go ahead and attack. We will antagonize, and we will probably see this either countered, or we will see the soldiers come down. Soul Partition. A very good early removal that really does let Azorius Control take one more step forward in these kinds of matchups. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a counterspell here, and if that's the case, we'll probably just go ahead and concede this one, as we still haven't gotten any of our other creatures. Yeah, Experimental Augury. They're going to go looking at the top 3 cards of their library and probably get something like a Wandering Emperor. Now, if they are, if they start getting life gain and also start taking out our creatures, that is going to be a big no-no. So they're on 4 mana. We don't have a whole lot in hand. So if we attack with the Phoenix Chick, we have nothing to protect it from a Wandering Emperor. We know that on turn 4, especially having seen a little bit more of their library, it is likely that they have at least 1 copy in hand. So what I'm going to do here, in order to prevent them from gaining life and taking out our creature, is play a Swooping Lookout. They can either counter this if they want, or they'll let it go through. And I have a feeling if they want to play Wandering Emperor here, they'll let this go through. If it hits the board, we have our Stoke the Flames still available. We will go ahead and pass this turn. We'll see what they come down with. Maybe because we didn't attack, they'll pass on the Wandering Emperor and go for some sort of card draw. Yeah, that's totally fine. And I think in this case, because we have 2 creatures, and they're, well, maybe they would do maybe Sunfall is on the way. Sunfall is also a very real possibility at this point. I think we hold on, and we see if they're going to Sunfall us. If they do, we'll fire off our Stoke the Flames, and if they don't, we will fire off the Stoke the Flames. They might counter 1, and if they don't counter it, they might flash in a Wandering Emperor to take out our Phoenix Chick, gain some life, but that leaves them open to us taking out Wandering Emperor on the next play with a Seismic Wave. They take the damage, which is very nice, so we'll go ahead and continue to play around Wandering Emperor. We'll hit in with our Swooping Lookout, because it has Vigilance, another really well-positioned 1 damage creature against the Wandering Emperor, that is. And we will go ahead and pass the turn again. Now we're playing a little cheeky here. Oh, well that's not great. So Union of the Third Path is going to give them life equal to the number of cards they have in hand. They have 6 cards in hand. They'll have 7, put them back up to 15. And that is the exact opposite of what we want to be seeing as an aggro deck. So we'll see what comes out of their hand, if anything, this turn, but it's very possible that that was the turning of the game, and that we might have to tip our hat and move along. Yep, we see a Stoke the Flames. We will go ahead and deal some damage straight to. Another land probably isn't going to do it. Now we can do 2 damage to face at instant speed, and we might as well see what we get out of this. But this would be an excellent time to draw into a Sunrise Cavalier, another Hasty Flyer, Realmbreaker, the Invasion Tree. So this is going to be milling. Interesting. Haven't seen a whole lot of this card on the queue yet. So we'll go ahead and fire off our removal. 3 mana for 2 damage isn't the best, but it does go face. It keeps us with some hope. Yet another Seismic Wave. So we've drawn all of our Seismic Waves. We have 4 damage in hand, 5 mana. It's possible that they're going to fire off another Union, or they're touching the Realmbreaker. So we'll go ahead and mill a few. we will go ahead and take advantage of that by dealing some more damage to face. We saw 2 lands and a lightning strike go to bin. That lightning strike would have been very nice to have. Would have put us within 2 damage of lethal. But we'll see what comes down. They have a lot of mana, they have a lot of good cards in their deck, and they have a very interesting way of putting out a lot of Praetor cards. We'll see if they can get there. They need 10 mana, they're at 5, 8. Draw Fateful Absence, probably not going to do too much for us, but we will pass the turn and continue to bide our time. Now there is a world in which we could make this happen. We'll deal 2 more damage here, 1 more damage to all the creatures that don't exist, and we'll hold up Fateful Absence. Now they're probably going to go digging for lands. They have 5, 6, 7, 8. They might get their 9th land. They can get their 10th from a Realm Breaker if they had 1 more mana. But so it looks like that is what our that's what our opponent's play is going to be. So our best scenario here is going to be drawing into 2 more pieces of burn, saving those pieces of burn for when they make their big play, and hoping they don't have any other way of gaining life. So it looks like they're going to make us or themselves mill, or yes, they're going to burn an entire Jace to mill out our deck. So we'll see what got put in there. We have 1 Stoke the Flames, Kumano's a Lightning Strike, and looks like that's all. So that actually wasn't too bad of a hit for us. The issue is, of course, the fact that we have a Fateful Absence and we are drawing lands. But that doesn't mean it's quite over yet. We'll just keep being patient and see if maybe we can squeak something out. Play with fire would have been very nice to have. And so it looks like next turn they'll probably get their Praetors onto the battlefield. We can take out anything that gives them lifelink, such as the 4 mana Shieldred, and that might give us just enough of a turn to maybe squeak something out. It is unlikely, but everyone loves an underdog story, so we'll give it a chance. Looks like opponent is just going for the mill plan, which, to be fair, they could easily get to. So they mill to Stoke the Flames. 1, 2 Stoke the Flames. 3, 4. So we're out of Stoke the Flames. We have 1 Lightning Strike in the bin, 2 Lightning Strikes in the bin, 2 Play with Fires. So we still have more Lightning Strikes and more Play with Fires. However, we only have 7 cards left, and they can mill us for 3. So we have 1 more draw to try to get the burn we need. And it looks like they are keeping up some of their blue mana. So we'll see how this goes. If this accidentally taps a blue, which it does not. Sunrise, Sunrise, Sunrise. Ooh, well, that's not bad. We might be able to sneak something in. Depends what they do on their next turn. We only have 4 mana. If they have another Jace, we will concede and move along. But this game was a little bit closer than I expected it. There it is. Good game. Good game, opponent. We'll fire off our Lightning Strike. We'll see if they have a counterspell here. They were probably holding one up the entire time, in which case, we only had hope. We'll go ahead and let them do our mill. We'll give them the satisfaction of watching our head explode, and we'll go to the next game. Okay, our next opponent is going to be Vudoga. And what do we have? We have more creatures than we did in the last game, and this is a very, very good thing. We have our Swiftspears, we have our Phoenix Chicks, we have a Lookout as backup, we We have one pump spell, and we have our Sunrise Cavalier. For the third game in a row, we're on the play, which is exactly what you could want. So, without knowing anything about our opponent's deck, we don't know if they're going to play creatures that'll be on the ground. We don't know if they'll be controlling. Given that we have a pump spell, and given that both of our creatures are 1 power, I think we go with a Phoenix Chick in case they have something that can start clogging the board. This is a toss-up. Either way could be wrong or right, so we'll have to get more information and see what happens. Looks like we're up against a mono black. They didn't have cut down, it looked like. So I think we go with the Swiftspear here into a Kumano, which will trigger prowess, deal a damage, and keep pushing damage in. Now, turn 3 Graveyard Trespasser could be a problem for us. Ooh, it's actually green and black. So this isn't so bad. We have a Scrap Gorger, which is going to help them ramp. And usually when they're playing Scrap Gorgers, that means that they want to get to a fight rigging and then a bigger creature. So we have a couple options here. We could attack with the Swiftspear, try to take out their mana and stall them. However, that means that that's 4 mana we are not pushing to face if we were going to antagonize on the Swiftspear. So I think what we'll do is we will bluff, having something that can take out the Scrap Gorger, and we will antagonize on the Phoenix Chick instead to push through as much damage as we can. It's going to be easier to get 10 damage in than it will be to get 14. So we'll go ahead and do that, let them keep the Scrap Gorger, see what they play out next, and we will hope for some white mana for our Fateful Absence. Yep, as we expected, opponent plays a fight rigging. Their Armored Scrap Gorger will go up to a 1/4 with the counter from fight rigging. But that is where they stay. Ooh. So now we have very big decisions. If we play our Sunrise Cavalier and attack all, they will probably block the Cavalier and we'll get through 4 damage. They might then spend their turn 4 playing a creature big enough for the fight rigging. Now the problem with that is going to be that as soon as that fight rigging puts up their whatever creature they might play over 7, they're going to cast whatever's under here, and that could be very bad news for us. So what I think we want to do is actually just attack all, keep our creatures around, and use our Fateful Absence to hit the next creature that they play out. So this is totally fine. We will take our opponent down to 7, which is very much in striking distance, especially if we draw one of our burn spells off the top. And we'll see what happens next. Opponent does not tap their Scrap Gorger, but they do bring down a Shakedown Heavy. So the fact that they kept up 2 mana is moderately concerning. Ooh, they have another Scrap Gorger. So we will see how this goes. Make sure we understand fight rigging again. Put a 1/1 counter, then if you control. So we can wait until they select which creature to put the counter on. It's going to be the Shakedown, so we'll go ahead and remove that. We'll live to fight another day. Oh, Seismic Wave. So this gives us the ability to take out their Scrap Gorger to deal 2 damage to face. So if we deal 2 damage to face, it pumps up Swiftspear, so that makes 4, 5. We technically have lethal in hand. We could also play a Cavalier out, see what they take from that. What we really don't want is for them to gain any more life, though, and that is something that could very well happen. So they're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They play a 7th, they might be able to play a Titan. That would be bad news for us. I think we have to take out the Scrap Gorger. Pump up our team. We have 5 damage incoming. And that puts us in striking range if they do not have a way to gain life. Ooh, it's going to be Flesh Gorger. Oh, now this makes things very interesting. So it seems like they have something that's holding priority. This could be a removal spell, it could be a burn spell. Ooh, this puts us in a tough position. If we had drawn our burn spell, we could have stolen this game, but opponent made a very smart play putting down the Flesh Gorger. This is going to be very difficult for us to get around. Now we would normally be okay with paying the amount of life. Sunrise Cavalier can't get past either of them, but we also don't have another play. So I think what we do is we go ahead and we play our Phoenix Chick. We see if they want to act on that, and then all we can do is play our Cavalier. So we'll get that down and we'll see what happens. Opponent draws a card, and they will now potentially be at 7 mana. They can play their Titan, they can destroy our Kumano, they can cast a couple cards, and that might be the end for us. But it all depends on what we draw. Another Scrap Gorger. Ooh. They go to combat. They're playing out their Flesh Gorger. They're attacking. Very interesting. We're going to have to take this, but that leaves them vulnerable. They go up to 6, and we have plenty of ways of making them pay for that. So, what can we do here? If we attack all, what happens? It feels like opponent is keeping up some sort of removal here. It also feels like this is the last turn we're going to have, because Phyrexian Scrap Gorger, or Flesh Gorger rather, is going to start taking over the game and put it out of reach for us. I think our only play here is potentially to attack all, and then does it make sense to save this for an instant? If we do it now, we attack this, the lower power, lower toughness Scrap Gorger. We can take that out, put the higher toughness Scrap Gorger to 3, which means we'll get through 2, 4, 5 damage. Not quite. If they... This is tough. This might be a case of attack all and see what happens, which I kind of like. They can block both, and that'll give us a better chance of figuring out what to do next. So let's go ahead and attack all. If they make the wrong call, which it doesn't look like they will, that's fine. Ooh, it's almost better to go face here, which I think we will. So go ahead, get some prowess in, do some damage, and we'll see if they're holding on to something that would have won them the game anyways. So they held on, they're hovering over their hand. We'll see if they have some way to make this work for them. Ooh. Oh, they go down to 2 life to 1 life. And now they have 1 creature, 2 cards in hand. Oh, this is an exciting game. So Flesh Gorger is a 5/5. That means they are going to be, with Fight Rigging, 1 power away from casting whatever that second spell is. I am not sure. Ooh, so they have to attack, gain some life. That'll put them up to 7. We have 5, 6, 7 on the ground. If we get a removal spell here, and we do, we have lethal. So I think the right call here is going to be burn the sleeper, attack all. Now if they have a removal spell, so let's see if they hold up priority. This is actually going to hold up priority anyways, so let's go for it. Burn the sleeper, see what they do about that. attack all, and see where that gets us. Look at that. Good game, Vudoga. That came down to the very last chance. Wasn't expecting that, but that's what happens when you play a very good game. So we are on the play against Ryluz. This is not the best of hands for us, considering most of our deck is in fact red, so we'll go ahead and mulligan. This is a much, much better hand. Now we are in a slightly difficult position. We have 2 creatures, which is great. We love a little bit of redundancy there. We have 1 pump spell, a removal spell, and a Sunrise Cavalier. I don't think we can afford to give away our Lightning Strike or our Cavalier. Antagonize could be very good. That's the kind of card that gets us over the threshold. However, if our opponent just has 1 removal spell, we may be dead in the water. So I'm thinking this is either between Swooping Lookout or Antagonize. And I'm leaning towards Swooping Lookout. Now we are on the play. That means we want to go fast. We want to take advantage of that first mover advantage. Opponent is thinking hard about their hand. We know we're going to keep this. I think the safe play is to drop Antagonize. But with the knowledge that we also have a turn 3 Cavalier and a turn 2 play, I think we throw caution to the wind and we just try to go fast. Again, most of our wins as an aggro deck are going to come from pushing as much damage as fast as possible and hoping our opponent has a small slip up. This could be a missed land drop. It could be not drawing into a key removal spell. The way to make sure that happens as often as possible is to keep a very, very consistent go face strategy. So it looks like opponent is on the Elspeth Avatar, which, you know, as a card back holder myself, I can respect. Ooh, got the go-to March of the Machines card back. Very cool too. Okay. So opponent plays down at Blossoming Sands, gains a little bit of life. Now that is interesting. That might tell us that our opponent is also on a common uncommon strategy, which hats off opponent. Okay, so we have an Antagonize, we have a Lightning Strike. They did not have a turn 1 play, so I think we continue to bluff red. We antagonize our Phoenix Chick, make him a big 5/4, and just keep on going. So this frees up our turn 3 for a Sunrise Cavalier, which means we'll be pushing damage and continue to push damage. They may play down their first creature, or maybe they are in Bant and they're a little bit more controlling. No, just Selesnya for now. Into a Venom Connoisseur. So this is going to be potentially a Death Touch deck. So whenever another creature enters the battlefield under opponent's control, Venom Connoisseur is going to gain Death Touch. This is something we don't have to worry about now, especially given that we have a Tramply Hasty 3/3. And the fact that we have 2 damage-based removal spells that can go face, ready to put off on a turn 3 or turn 4 rather, is really, really good for us. So if opponent doesn't have a very strong turn 3 creature play, we may be able to pull a little bit further ahead, but we'll have to see what happens. I can also see an interesting strategy where opponent plays a Venom Connoisseur out, holds out a couple flash creatures, like the 2-mana white soldier that creates another soldier. And then that way, all of them would get, ooh, interesting, Gathering Throng. Is this a citizens deck? Human. Huh. Okay. So they are being a little bit too aggressive here and attacking, and that really frees us up. So we'll go ahead and play a Swiftspear. We'll play the Play with Fire, take out their only blocker, push some more damage, And this puts them in a very awkward position that I'm not entirely sure they can come back from. If they clear the board here, that would be devastating. But given that they have Gathering Throng in their deck, I have a feeling they are just going to be a creature-based strategy. We'll see if we're wrong. We could be surprised. I think there's a lot of potential behind this particular card. Either way, we have 4 damage on the ground, 3 of it being trample, and then we have 1 flyer. Opponent plays a 4th land, which might give them the ability to double spell. Looks like they might have some sort of fight. Nope, just going to be another Gathering Throng. Do they have a 1 mana? Nope, it looks like, ooh, they're just attacking. Okay, so a second Phoenix Chick, straight into combat. We'll fire off our Lightning Strike, and that'll be GG's Ryluz's. Just another example of how a go fast strategy and a commitment to it really makes a lot of difference. So that will be our last pip in Gold Tier 1, and we have ranked up to Platinum Tier 4 using nothing but a commons and uncommons list. We'll go ahead and end the video there for today, but I appreciate you joining us, and I will see you next time.